what is international law? Because no one seems to give a shit about it. Who makes it and who enforces it? Or what is this? Is like this is an amorphous thing? I don't. You got a mayor of New York saying that he's gonna arrest Netanyahu because of international law. Like, what the F is international law?
Jillian, as a lawyer, it's a very good question. Okay, so as someone who took foreign relations law, and it was literally one of my highest grades in all of law school, it's actually a very real question. So look, if we're being a little less snarky here, so in a very limited fashion, there is such thing as quote unquote international law. There were very well-known international law theorists, a man by the name of Hugo Grotius, a man by the name of Emmer de Vattel. Vattel writes this big treatise called The Law of Nations. Antonin Scalia actually cited it in various cases when he was a justice on the U.S. Supreme Court. But this is going back 300 or more years ago. And back then, what was referred to as the law of nations or international law. And there are some very early American Republic statutes that reference the law of nations. So it's not really getting into the details, but there's something called the Alien Tort Statute, which refers to the law of nations. So there's such thing as the law of nations. But back then, we're talking here above all about things like maritime law, law on the high seas. And we're talking here just about normative bonds or normative kind of axioms that different countries have to respect to one another because there's no enforcement mechanism. Okay. It ultimately is only as strong as the ability or willingness of the various parties, which in this case means mostly countries, to actually abide by these norms that we've agreed to kind of just by action, by custom, by precedent, by repeating itself over and over and over again. Now, in a modern context, especially post 1945, post United Nations founding, so-called international law, I guess, refers to these globalist boondoggles. I mean, the UN, the WHO, the WTO, the ICC, the ICJ, trying to enforce their quote-unquote rulings. The problem, at least from an American perspective, is that these people are not sovereign. Okay, people don't understand this. In the United States, we the people are sovereign. How do I know that? Because we literally wrote it in the preamble of the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, are the sovereigns in this country. And what that means is that our law, our Constitution, our statutes, and yes, the treaties that we agree to, that is the law of the land that is binding in the United States under Article 6 of the Constitution. In fact, kind of putting on my legal nerd hat for a second, one of my all-time favorite Supreme Court cases that Ted Cruz actually argued back when he was Solicitor General of Texas back in the 2000s was a little-known case called Median versus Texas. The details are neither here nor there. Median was a horrific murderer who Texas wanted to execute, to give him capital punishment, and the United Nations, all the globalists basically said no. And Cruz ends up going against not just the United Nations, but also the Bush administration actually sided against Texas. And long story short, he won. And he won a resounding victory for constitutionalism over globalism, for the notion that in this country, our oath of office, we are bound by our laws, our treaties, our statutes, not by what the United Nations says. So yes, there is such thing as the law of nations, but the United States only submits to it to the extent that our own statutes, like this kind of obscure statute called the Alien Tort Statute mentioned, to the extent that we voluntarily bring it upon ourselves. Other than that, there's really no such thing. There's definitely no binding or enforcement mechanism. There's no police force that Francesco Albanese and the UN are going to sound around the world to try to round up people there. So it's a very nice talking point, Jillian, but in many ways, frankly, it's an ill-informed talking point of hacks and morons, which is basically why you're hearing people like Zohar Mamdani and Chris Murphy talk about it.
Unbelievable. Okay, so long story short, you believe that Trump has the law on his side and everybody else is full of baloney, basically. Is that my takeaway here?
I think that's basically right. Now, look, Jillian, I'll be honest with you, as a political commentator, I did not have this on my bingo card. I definitely did not have any of this on my bingo card. I thought that Trump might take a more assertive role in Latin America. I definitely did not see it happening to this extent. But I think it's brilliant. I mean, it's a brilliant win for the DOJ. They have these fugitives of justice who are now being arraigned and will be tried, prosecuted, likely convicted of their offenses. It's a huge win for the American people, all those who are suffering from these drugs coming into the country. It's a huge win for global supply of oil when it comes to energy. And above all, it's just a huge win for the United States. We frankly look like a bunch of
Okay.
badasses, and our enemies, China, Iran, and
Okay.
Russia, look terrible. I mean, they fundamentally look terrible. They've lost a crucial ally. The Western Hemisphere is safer, Jillian, and so is the United States. And Donald Trump, I salute him because they did a fantastic job here.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.